Hey everyone, when we gather for experiences in person, we generally start by singing. It's a great way to connect your body and mind, and it's a chance to align ourselves with the most important thing, Jesus. So, get your karaoke voices ready.
Well, I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old made new, Jesus, when I met you, when you called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Oh!
If you haven't already, go ahead and download the Suncrest app. You can do that by opening your phone camera and pointing it right here. In the app, you'll find all sorts of content to help you on your faith journey here at Suncrest, whether online or in person. There's a catalog of messages, content specifically for your kids, and much more. If this is your first time watching this experience, I have some specific instructions for you. We want to know that you're watching. You can notify us that you're tuning in by either finding the I'm New button in the app or by texting us at the number on the screen. And for letting us know that, we want to send you a digital gift card for some coffee. It's pumpkin spice season. I don't understand that at all, but you do, and I'm not judging. One of my favorite things is that we can be together even when we're apart. If you're someone who has made Suncrest On-Demand a regular part of your schedule, you're basically my hero. But one thing that is always true is that Jesus doesn't invite us to watch him. He invites us to follow him, to live the life that he lived. We believe that everyone has a next step in their faith journey. It could be baptism, joining a group, or even serving at Suncrest or at one of our community partners. Last Saturday was Serve Day, and a bunch of Suncrest folks came out on a rainy morning to make a difference, to change lives. Here's a quick recap of the day, where you'll get to hear from Tyrone and Gabby Campbell, the recipients of the Habitat for Humanity home that we built right here in the Suncrest parking lot.
What does a house mean to you guys?
Stability, comfort, security. Yes, all of those things and so much more. Like my children have ownership now, something that belongs to them.
Oh man, it's wonderful. I feel like you're in heaven right now with a lot of people you don't know, different skin colors, different blood type, and they all pitching in like a family, one big family, and that's what it's all about.
The most important part that resonates with me most is that these are complete strangers willing to help us reach the goal that we have for our family. Thank you so much. It means so much to our family, and it's extremely important for my children to see complete strangers willing to help them. It means so much, the impact that this is making on my little people. So big for us.
If you feel like God is getting your attention and you're ready to put your faith into action, then go ahead and text "Next Step" to the number on the screen. Someone from our team will reach out this week to help you on your faith journey. Everything we do at Suncrest is because of the love of Jesus. We love because he first loved us. We give and serve and sacrifice because he modeled that for us. Over the next minute or so, we're going to stop and reflect in a time called communion. So now's the time for you to grab the food and the drink that you have to represent the body and the blood of Jesus. During this time, reflect, pray, and then eat and drink when you're ready. Our financial generosity is one of the ways that we put our faith into action. We give so that others might experience how Jesus can change everything in big, practical ways, like providing a home for the Campbells, and in personal ways through baptisms and developing relationships in groups. The easiest way to give is by using the Suncrest app or website. If you'd like to write a check, that can be dropped off at the building this week. As you're doing that, I've got a question for you to get us ready for today's message. What is the longest road trip you've ever been on? You could take that to mean two things. What's the longest as in distance? Maybe you've traveled completely across the world. Or you could mean, what's the worst road trip you've ever taken? I mean, maybe it was just an hour, but with 3 screaming kids in the back seat the entire time. Or maybe it's simply been 2020 itself. I mean, that's been a crazy long trip. As you get your generosity set up and your answer to the question typed, let's get ready for today's message.
Hey everybody, as you might imagine, I'm often looking for something that everyone will agree on, and these days that's harder than you might think, but I think we can all get around this. 2020 so far has been an absolute trip, right? Now I actually love the imagery of journey when we think about life and the direction that we're going. We've used the idea in the song, Life is a Highway before, which the guy behind the camera reminds me this is Tom Cochran, not Rascal Flatts. Okay, we got that. But the image of a road trip where the wind's blowing through your hair and the windows are down and the music's playing and you're smiling and laughing, that's actually not the image of 2020. Maybe the image is more like a family vacation where you're driving to some far off destination and in the back seat, the voices will come, "Are we there yet?" Now, I'm a guy who loves a good driving vacation. I drive this minivan that has 266,000 miles on it, and it's been on family trips that we've taken with our kids to Niagara and New York City and Washington, D.C. and Florida a few times and Texas and Yellowstone. I mean, we have been all over the country. And I'm not the guy who's willing to invest in putting the DVD system into your van. So plenty of times on our rides, the kids have been in the back, and of course they wonder, are we there yet? And maybe I came by this naturally because I grew up in a family that loved these family road trips. My parents are pretty cool. They actually took me out of school for 2 weeks in 4th grade so that we could drive to Florida. I could see the ocean for the first time at Daytona Beach. I could go to Disney World. It was going to be fantastic. And my parents had a 1978 Lincoln Town Car. This thing was a boat. On those family vacations, the destination that we were going to, it was great. I wanted to get there. But the process of getting from here to there, it seemed long and hard and arduous, and I was not all that patient. The words would just naturally come out from me, the whiny kid in the back. Are we there yet? And here's the thing. It's kind of human nature to try to avoid things that we don't like. The moment we're in a situation that's uncomfortable or difficult, we do everything we can to escape those situations or take them into our own hands to change those situations or just do whatever we can to obliterate the boredom or the difficulty or the hardship or the uncertainty that comes with it. And I think 2020 has revealed that to be true in all of us. I have conversations, and this is happening with everybody. With my neighbors, with church people, with other leaders in the community, we find ourselves in very difficult places and we know we're just in the middle of the journey. See, sometimes that's relational. I know that's what's going on under your roof right now may look a lot different than it did just a year or two ago. Stresses have been added to it. People are spending more time together. There's worries and concerns and not always agreement. And right now it could feel like from a marriage perspective or a parenting perspective or anything, like I'm just in the middle of something and I want it to end. I want to get to the destination. Sometimes it's financial or employment related. I talk to people all the time who feel like they're just holding on to their job, but they don't know when the other shoe might drop. Others have already lost jobs, or their financial world has been turned upside down. And they believe there is a place out into the future where it can be different and there can be hope again. But for right now, it's kind of stuck in the middle, and we just want to get there and think, are we there yet? Sometimes it's leadership roles. Some of you are leading companies and organizations and even governments who are in the middle of the most turbulent leadership time you've ever been in. And it's not that all hope is lost. There's a picture of the future, but right now, it's tougher than it's ever been. And sometimes it's a health thing, whether it's a COVID health thing or not a COVID health thing. Sometimes you get the news of someone you love, and you understand there should be a pathway to health, but it's going to be difficult. And what we do in those times during the journey is very, very important. So over the next 4 episodes, I want to explore this question, are we there yet? And it's really a help, I hope, that you can navigate life when life is frustrating and the destination is still a little ways off. Now, if you know me, you know that I think faith and life are supposed to be integrated. Some people talk about faith in ways that actually have nothing to do with real life. And I always think, that's crazy. Faith only matters if it matters when my feet are on the ground and I'm facing whatever I'm facing. But some people talk about life without faith. And I think that is equally crazy. I want you to reject the idea that you're supposed to trudge through this life without God's intervention in it. And so I think this series will be a beautiful picture in our kind of messy middle where we're integrating life and faith. I'll give you the heads up. In this first week and the final week, I'm going to ask you to lift your eyes up. I'm going to ask you to look a little higher than maybe you've looked before and put things in perspective so that 2020 isn't completely consuming to you. And in the middle 2 weeks, I'm going to give you some very spiritually practical tools in order to be able to answer questions like, should I stay or should I go? Where should I find the right wisdom to navigate my next steps? It will all be part of this. But for today, I'm going to ask you to aim a little higher. Whenever I was with my parents on those family vacations, I remember when I would get bored in the back seat, sometimes my brothers and I would come up with our own, what I'll call coping mechanisms. Some of those were healthy. We could search all the license plates of all the states and have some little game. And some of them were not so healthy. They usually involved fights or drawing lines in the car or shoving my little brother down on the floorboards and my older brother up in the back window. And probably for you, as you navigate the relational and financial and leadership and health, or whatever it is that you're facing, you have some coping mechanisms that are fine. And maybe you've noticed that you are employing some coping mechanisms that aren't all that fine. And actually, that's why I respect how my parents handled it from the front seat so much. They'd let us go for a little while with the healthy coping mechanisms, but when they saw it start to go wrong, you know what they always did? They always started a conversation that was talking about the destination. My mom would say, hey, what are you looking forward to at Disney World? What's the ride that you want to ride the most? Which character do you want to see? Hey, what do you think it'll be like when we stand on the beach and we gather shells? And all of a sudden she would start our minds going, not toward the moment we were in, but to the place where we were going. And I think it's a very powerful beginning for us to think, when we ask, are we there yet? To lift our eyes up and aim a little higher. So, I want you to spend a little time getting clear on your destination. Admiral James Stockdale was actually the highest ranking officer ever to be a prisoner of war during the Vietnam War. He was at the Hanoi Hilton, as they called it, and he actually was a prisoner of war for 8 years. Since he returned and has reflected on that experience, he actually talks about how it's an experience he wouldn't trade because of the good that came out of it for his life. And he's become known for what's called the Stockdale paradox. Now, when you talk to him about how he was able to endure over 8 years, he has a single line that he uses first. He says, I never lost faith in the end of the story. It's a powerful imagery to always keep our eyes up, to aim a little higher, to keep the destination in mind. If you don't have faith in the end of the story, the middle of the story will crumble on you. But interestingly, when he was asked about who among the prisoners of war had the most trouble surviving, or perhaps didn't survive, you might be surprised by his answer. He says it was the optimists. And I always thought, the optimists? I thought they would have looked forward to what's next and be able to survive to the future. But he said, the optimists, unfortunately, always pictured that this would be done soon. We'll be out by Christmas, they would say, and then Christmas would come and they would not be out. We'll be out by Easter, we'll be out by summer, we'll be out by next Christmas. And those dates would come and go. And because there was a short-term optimism that did not work out, it actually became very difficult for those guys to work through. So the Stockdale paradox is actually this. He says, you must never confuse faith that will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, no matter what they might be. What he's saying to us is, you have to have your eyes up. You have to focus on where this is going, what meaningful things are being done, what destination will you reach, and at the same time, be able to look at your current reality as reality so as to navigate these two things together. You remember when I told you it's kind of human nature to avoid things that you don't like? I do that, just like everybody else. And actually, there's a few passages in the Bible that I'm not actually the biggest fan of. They're true and they're helpful. They're just not like what I wish they said. And I think today is the right day to look at one of those. I'm going to ask you today to embed 3 verses from the writings of James in your life as you're at this point in 2020. Now, you've heard me talk about James before. He writes in ways that are very practical, but this one is about pushing our eyes up. James was the brother of Jesus, but maybe more importantly today, we have to remember that when James wrote this, he was a part of a community that was in crisis. In fact, he was responsible for the community that was in crisis. And I know it probably isn't that helpful to compare, like, was it worse for them than it is for us? But study the history. It was worse for them than it is for us. And again, I don't love what James says here, but it is powerful. So I'm going to start in James chapter 1, verse 2. And to help you understand it best, I'm actually going to flip the order of the first verse, because I think as you read it in English, this will help us see what it really means. He says, whenever you face trials of many kinds, whenever you're in the middle of distress, whenever you're fighting and fighting and fighting, and the end is not right around the corner, whenever you are overwhelmed, whenever you face trials of many kinds, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters. Now, who loves that? Not me. But I have found it to be a powerful way to reframe the difficulties of my life, especially in light of who God is and in light of where this is ultimately going. And so what James is asking us to do is to say, when times are tough, when you're facing these trials, reframe it, look at it differently, consider it to be something you may not first consider it to be. Consider it pure joy. And then he starts to explain why. He says, because you know that the testing of your faith produces something. He says, when you go through tough times, it is the perfect opportunity to reveal the strength of your faith. It's the perfect time to expose, if you will, what you believe. Maybe what you really believe. Definitely what you really trust in and what is most important to you in your life. Trials have a way of refining things, and these tests are really there. Now, many times, people who think of their faith as being strong or central to their life will go through a trial or a test or a difficulty, and what it will reveal to them is that their faith actually wasn't authentic. It was counterfeit. That the faith that they thought was so central to who they are was actually only based in themselves. And it also points to when people are willing to turn over trust to God, a true faith, or feel like they have to grab control for themselves. So we're in a difficult time right now. You might be in the most difficult time that you've ever faced. And it is revealing something. It's demonstrating something. It's showing something. And I'm praying that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. You see, the image here is that James says, your faith, especially in tough times, it's like a muscle. It's something that you exercise. And actually, when you go through the difficulties of life, that's the chance for your faith to grow, for your perspective to be reframed, for you to see the world the way God sees the world. And it takes exercise. And I think mostly what he's saying here is, don't leave the gym early. Don't step out or tap out because things are difficult. Don't just turn to coping mechanisms, but lean into what is difficult with your eyes up so that the testing of your faith can produce perseverance. Because this is what he says. He says, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. He says the destination is something you actually probably want. It may not have been the first destination you had in mind. You may have just been focused on an earthly destination. I want the financial problems to be solved. I want everybody to get along. I want to get through this season. But James is lifting our eyes up a little bit. And he says, one of the things God does in the toughest seasons of your life is he uses those in you to make you stronger, to make you whole, complete, and to make you mature. Someone who can endure most anything. God's promise is never that you'd avoid difficulty. Jesus is the first one to acknowledge that in this world we'll have trouble, but take heart, he's overcome the world. And so, though our prayers might often be, God, remove this pain from me. Get me, fast forward me to the destination. Get me through, deliver me out of it. I think James is offering us a different prayer here. And so, I'm going to ask you this week just to pray this prayer with me. Whatever it is that you're facing, say, God, will you use this until you remove this? God, I want you to remove it. I want to get through. I want to get past it. I want to get to the end. I want it to be solved. I want to be refreshed again. But until that comes in this difficult time, will you use this inside of me? Will you build me out to be a stronger person, to be more aware of your presence, to invite more of your activity in my life, to bring about a maturity to my faith, not just an elementary version of a faith? Could you make me into the kind of people who are able to trust you fully and endure through anything? God, will you use this in me until you remove this? See, I think it's a powerful prayer and a powerful posture because almost all of us know that the greatest times of growth in our lives were not when things were easy, but instead when things were difficult. The times that you were the most stretched are the times when you became the best part of who you are today. But that's not guaranteed. It's also true that many times people go through painful things and it doesn't result in strength and maturity and wisdom and perspective and faith. It's actually just a difficult time in life that can beat somebody out and leave them on the side of the road. And so this is the picture I want to leave you with. That pain without gain would be a shame. Pain is part of this world. Gain is possible if we reframe it and understand that in the midst of difficulty, God could actually be doing a great work in us. But it's not guaranteed. It's only if we can lift our eyes up and aim higher so that God can do his work in us. Can I pray for that right now? God, until you remove what we're going through, what we're collectively going through and what we're individually going through, would you use it in our lives? Would you teach us something? Would you show us your work? Would you demonstrate your trustworthiness? And would you allow it not to be wasted, but that this pain would result in our completeness and maturity? In Jesus' name, amen.
Before we wrap up episode 1 of Are We There Yet? Let us know in the comments, what was something meaningful that you experienced? Maybe it was the Serve Day recap, the moment of reflection, something you heard in the message. We'd love to know what you found meaningful about our time together. Starting on October 4th, we're going to have an opportunity for you to really hone in on your communication skills. And I don't just mean remembering how to talk to people in public. No, I'm talking about the way that we relate to even the people in our homes. Check this out.
This is about understanding people to the core. Figuring out what you said and what they heard and eliminating this gray area in between. By you understanding your authentic wiring, you'll become the very best version of yourself. What we will be learning about is temperaments, which is the why behind your personality. I've invited some people to join me.
My name is Tony. I'm 26.
I'm Andrew, 25.
I'm Jeremy. I'm 40.
I'm Leslie. It's none of your business what my age is.
Remember, our strengths and weaknesses are choices. We're going to recreate real-life situations and conflicts. Learning the temperaments will change everything. All of your relationships, every decision you make, and every word you speak. This is going to be a fun journey.
Keep an eye out for your chance to sign up for this group experience. Registration opens September the 28th. As always, you know that this experience and our building aren't the church. You are. So go and be the church.